I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I think what a lot of these guys do, these kind of the guys who come from atheism and try to defend the globe, I think they think that the debate's going to be the same. I think they think that it's going to be like mostly based in rhetoric and narrative. And then when someone like Nathan who just goes, but bruh, here's a bunch of objective shit, like you can't rhetoric your way out of that, You have to bring something. And he obviously wasn't prepared.
Yeah. No, it was a bit of a mess, yeah.
How about the introduction?
I've already introduced you. I can introduce you again. Azurethi meet Quantum Eraser. Quantum Eraser meet Azurethi. I hope you become best friends forever.
Hello. Nice to meet you, man.
How are you?
Not bad. Just kind of chilling.
So, you believe in the Jesuit-sponsored, Baltard-spinning space monkey religion?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, at least you're honest.
Be nice, Quantum. Be nice.
I am being nice.
Yeah,
I mean, to give a kind of more of a, I don't know, context as to what I chill about here for, is less to debate usually, because I tried that quite a while back, and I've been banned a few times. It's good fun.
Really?
Yeah. It's never. I mean, we can try it if you like. It tends to go south pretty quick. So
I wonder why. I just want to test your science acumen to make sure you got one above 5th grade.
Yeah, we can do that if you like.
We can do that. Can natural science be? Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to begin. Go ahead.
No worries. I was just going to say my whole kind of reason for being here is I'm doing a degree in physics, so I'd hope my physics is a little bit above 5th grade.
So we're going to find out. We're going to find out here in a second, aren't we?
I hope
so. When you get the globies that come in that are like, oh, well, I studied physics in high school, so I'm better than everyone here. I like to be able to kind of take them down a peg and be like, can you fucking calm your shit, man? And try and get like a decent debate going.
All right, I'll try to be decent. At heart, I'm wholly decent. Everyone can attest to that.
It's chill.
Tumbleweeds.
I'm not going to come out with any, type of gotchas. This is going to be simple stuff. So this shouldn't be too difficult to overcome for you. Can natural science be conducted without experiment?
No.
So you have to have experiment to be natural science, right? Correct?
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty accurate.
Is astronomy, cosmology, and astrophysics science? Natural science?
No. So, by that definition, no. And I do agree with you. You can't really experiment. I think I get where you're going with that. Essentially, like, you can't exactly yoink an independent, event-dependent variable about a planet that's allegedly, however many millions of miles away, and do an actual experiment there. So I suppose you could say it's not a natural science. But I would argue though that there is some merit to the fact that, say, if you want to take a star, for example, you can look at different stars rather than just the same one. And you can do science there in a sense. It is kind of experimental and empirical and all that jazz. Say you look at one.
What does empirical mean?
Based on just measurement alone, essentially.
No. Empirical is observable, testable, repeatable, and falsifiable. It's essentially the summary of the scientific method.
Okay.
So it's not empirical. You can observe it. Yeah, you can observe, you can look out there, but you're not. Science, to have natural science, you must have experiment.
Yeah, but I would argue that you can do that. Say, I mean, you don't have to assume anything about stars in general. You can just look at them and go, all right, that's a star.
How do you know it's a star? You'd have to define what a star is first, right?
You just say it's that little spot of light in the sky. You don't have to get any formal definition. I'm just using the word because it's English. But the point I'm trying to make is that you can pick 10 different stars, let's say, and you look at them through a telescope and you compare their size to their spectral output, for example. And then you could make a trend on if it's this big optically from my point of view. Obviously, you just see a circle, you're not assuming it's a sphere or whatever. Then it has a different peak wavelength.
Yeah, but that's just angular size.
Yeah. So you can say things with larger angular size have an increasing or decreasing peak wavelength.
Well, hold on a second. Number one, you're going to have to define stars, right? Number two, you're only getting the apparent, that is angular size. That's not science. Science is interested in how, why explanations, cause and effect questions, correct?
Well, not necessarily. I mean,
yes. Oh, we're going to have a problem here. A hypothesis only adjudicates how, why, cause and effect questions.
Right. You can still right. I'll ask this then. Would you argue that quote unquote scientific laws aren't part of science then?
That's exactly right. They're not scientific laws. That's a misnomer. They're natural laws.
Okay.
They don't go through the scientific method, correct?
Yeah.
If they don't go through the scientific method, then how can they be scientific then?
I think the word's just attributed to relate them to the body of science as a whole.
And Azurethi, is there an easier way? How do you pronounce that?
Azure or Az.
Azure?
Like. Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's the biggest trick. I get the most, even from flat earth, quote unquote, science majors, I get the most blowback from that because they're not ready when I say natural laws aren't scientific. So you have already admitted, and good on you, to already understand that.
Well, that's what I was saying, though. I don't think the word scientific put there is intended to infer that they are put through the scientific.
Oh, yes, it is.
In particular.
Oh, yes. I don't put, tumbleweed in front of Texas toast. Why? Well, because tumbleweeds and Texas toast don't have anything to do with each other. So when they put scientific law, they have a definite mission with that word. They put that word by mere fiat to kind of twist things up because I've talked about this before. Of course, natural laws are natural laws. They, like the second law of thermodynamics or the laws of thermodynamics, right? They're natural laws, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what they do is, here's a little game they play. That since hot goes to cold always, and that's all we've ever observed, for millennia. Right? They use that as scientific to then grease the skids to state that they're evolution horse shit and all the rest of it's true by using scientific in front of it.
Well, I mean, you can argue that you could use it as a media tool for the general masses because, your average Joe isn't exactly going to look up the definition of science and
that's what they say. That's their target. I'm sorry, that's their target audience.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Joe Coffey and Spinning Sally to say scientific. Yeah, that's who I'm. That's exactly who I'm talking about. That are not going to look it up or forgot what they learned in high school, if they even passed high school, to not look it up and just take their word for it because they're so-called scientists when most are not scientists at all.
No, I completely agree with you there. A lot of things as well, just from that the debate that Kryptonite sent me there. I thought someone, I don't know which one of the guys brought up. What one was it? Fucking the black dude did the gravity microphone drop. Oh, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Tyson.
Yes.
10 points, Jedi.
Yeah, someone brought him up and was like, "Oh well, he said this," and I'm like, "Oh, please don't use him as a source. He doesn't he gets hundreds of shit wrong." And
he would because he's got a PhD in astrophysics.
Yeah, I know. You get the celebrity scientists that will go on and they'll just chat about science in general, and they'll talk about fields that they've got no fucking expertise in.
Right,
and then you do get your kind of average Joe that's like, "Oh, they're a scientist. They must know what they're talking about."
Yeah, well, they're not scientists. That's the whole point. I want to get back to an important point because since we agreed, rightfully so, that you need experiment to conduct natural science, and to have an experiment, you must have a hypothesis, right? The scientific hypothesis sole method is to establish cause and effect.
Yeah.
So it's qualitative more than quantitative. But it gives it away because the hypothesis is based on a dependent variable, which is the effect, and the cause, which is the independent variable. And the experiment comes from the hypothesis, just with control or constants added to it. So it must be only cause and effect. Do you agree?
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, sir, I think that's the end of the debate. All I was trying to point, and obviously you do have a science acumen. You're the first baller to have a science acumen greater than a fifth grader. So it's good on you. I just wanted to point out the fact that not only is astrophysics, cosmology, and astronomy pseudosciences, we can just throw, because that's what we deal in this genre. However, we've got some other pretender clowns we could throw on in there with them. You ready? Paleontology, anthropology, archaeology, geology, evolutionary biology, whatever that is. And yes, I'm still laughing. Theoretical physics are all pseudoscience religions.
Can I debate him next on Earth rotation?
No, we're not debating. We're discussing.
Yeah, I just find theoretical physics to be funny, just as a term. It's like it is an oxymoron. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I was going to make a kind of comparison to kind of just get your point of view on it. So, I'm trying to think of like a simple experiment.
All right.
Like say we take like do you do any kind of electronic stuff, just like basic resistance and shit?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
Have you done anything like with basic electronics? I mean, I can explain it quickly. It's
a little bit. Many years ago, what would that have? Go ahead. Go ahead.
So say you put a resistor in series with a battery, and you vary your battery voltage, and you'll see your current change. Super simple. You draw a little graph of it, and that's nice. You've got like a little law there. Obviously, you've not done any particular science. That's just you looking at kind of natural phenomenon, and
that's not natural phenomenon.
I mean, I would argue that resistance is natural.
That's not a natural phenomenon. You're talking about resistors. How many resistors I find out in nature?
I mean, just the effect that's kind of exploited there.
Yeah, so but for natural, I'm sorry, I have to stop you. For the dependent variable must be natural, right? I'm not finding any resistors or anything out in nature. Now, is there cause and effect outside of natural phenomena? Yes, but that's not natural science. Follow?
I mean, you're saying like you can't find a resistor in nature, but I'm using the kind of standardized electrical component as an example. But just air has resistance, and like a rock has resistance.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
So I mean, obviously you don't have to use those particular components, but as a natural resistance in itself as a part of nature. Obviously not kind of in the colloquial sense of nature as in animals and plants and things and all that jazz.
Yep.
But it is a part of our reality, at least. So I was going to say is like, I mean, if you want to replace the resistor with air, that's chill. If you vary your voltage, you'll be able to watch the current increase as you increase your voltage because you're pushing more current through the thing. So
yeah,
just
but what's the cause? What's the dependent variable? What's the independent variable?
Well, your dependent variable will be your current going through, and your independent will be your battery voltage because you're varying your battery voltage.
So where'd the battery come from?
Right. So, I mean, like we can go all the way back to basics if you don't want to be using anything that's.
It's not me. It's the scientific method, man. It's not. I didn't come up with it. I assure you.
Well, yeah, but like to be fair, we can base. We base future study on previous things. So like
no, we don't. That's bullshit. No, we don't. Let's get to more of.
I'll give a brief example of that, but like I can go back and I'll go back to basics with my example I was trying to give before.
No,
we do definitely base.
Now I want to stick. This is a flat Earth server. I want to stick with more like what we're told is science, that isn't science. Some things like gravity, because we're going to lose everybody with this resistance and voltage. And I don't really care about that. I don't really care about
that either. I'm just trying to give. You can pick any experiment that you want to.
I pick gravity.
Well, no, because that's something we're going to vastly disagree on.
Well, we're talking science here, so there isn't a case of agree or disagree. That's subjective. We're into objective, empirical.
Right.
Right.
Can we pick something we agree on?
So let's talk about gravity. Right.
Can we finish the first point?
Because we agreed on what a hypothesis and what an experiment is. We already know that. So what are your thoughts?
I was trying to make a point of that. What I was talking about earlier.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking. I'm sorry.
I think he was just trying to finish his point, QE.
Well, go ahead and finish your point on resistance, and then we're going to get to gravity, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Well, the resistance thing is irrelevant. As you've said, if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to talk about it. All I was going to say is pick any thing that you want to observe in nature and vary some independent variable and measure some dependent variable. Why can I not then look at a bunch of stars and say my independent variable is the angular size of the star I'm looking at, and my dependent variable is the peak?
So the angular size of the star causes the peak.
No, I mean an experiment doesn't have to.
That's what you just said.
No, you don't have to determine direct cause.
You said the independent variable was the angular size of the star. Number one, that's a cause, right? So the angular size of the stars causes the peak, which is non sequitur. Number two, you can't vary and manipulate the angular size of the star, can you?
That's what I said. I can pick the angular size of a star that I wish to look at.
You can't vary and manipulate to cause the effect on the dependent variable. It's a category error.
No, you don't have to have a continuous variation. You can have discrete.
The researcher must vary and manipulate the independent variable in an experiment.
No, yeah, you have to manipulate it.
What's no yeah mean?
Sorry, that might be a kind of a Scottishism, but all I'm saying is I disagree with you and agree with some points you're saying.
Okay, like I said before, again, we're going to get into a problem here because I'm not talking about my favorite running back or my favorite color or ice cream. This has nothing to do with agree or disagree subjectivity. It has to do everything with objectivity. That's why I love this subject, right? Okay. So, do you agree, no pun intended, that you have to vary and manipulate the independent variable as a researcher?
100%. That's not what I was trying to say anything against.
Oh, we're done.
What I said was you don't have to continuously vary your independent variable.
Come on. Don't try to weasel on me, man. It's not going to turn out well.
No. But I'm just repeating what I said because I believe you.
I heard what you said. Now let's get to friggin' gravity. Which gravity do you contend that is associated with the heliocentric ball religion?
We can skip the point I was trying to make earlier, but I'd like to stay on it. You're trying to jump to gravity, which is fine. We can talk about it later. We don't have to talk about it right now.
Oh my God.
What? I'm just trying to have a chat with you, man. All I mean with you don't need to continuously vary something. You've been
double-speaking yourself.
Which gravity? Tell us the thing you're manipulating as the
wait a second. Yeah, wait a second. That's way down the line. He doesn't want to talk about gravity. He wants to be concerned with astronomy and cosmology and astrophysics that he already agreed with right out of the gate. You can't perform experiments. And now he's trying to weasel some type of way to perform an experiment. So that's impossible. You already said it was.
I'm not right.
You did. You said the angular size of the star causes a peak. You've already did that. But we all heard we're in here listening to you. So that's a contradiction in terms. You already said you can't do it. Now you're trying to do it. Am I missing something?
No, I agreed with you that you can't perform the experiment of the type that you said.
No, it's not. No. It's not the type that I said. I didn't make up the scientific method, sir.
I'm not saying you did.
The type that I said, there's only one type. It's called a scientific experiment. You have an independent variable, you have a dependent variable in the experiment itself that you got from the hypothesis. You add controller constants. You already agree with all that. You said that, and that was correct. You were right on point.
Yeah.
Right? But now you're trying to tell me that angular size is your or independent variable. No, it's not.
Right. I'm not trying to build a scientific experiment here. What I was saying, we earlier agreed that natural law, colloquially known as scientific law, is different from science as like related to the scientific method. We agree on that.
Yeah.
Right. So what I was trying to say is, could we not build one of those, not technically scientific, but natural laws about angular size of stars versus their peak wavelength?
What is the angular size? What does angular size mean?
It's like the size of the object in your field of view.
Okay, angular size means apparent size means not actually not real. So we're going to build the natural law off of something not real?
It's a real measurement. Obviously, it's dependent on other factors.
Yeah, some of the factors you don't know. Number one, the medium between you and it, you have no clue of what that is.
Yeah, I'm not trying to make any claims about any sort of medium. I'm just saying, if I look up, I can say the angular size of that star is this.
Well, isn't the medium that you're looking at to the star like a major frigging issue?
No.
It's not. So the medium between you and it has nothing to do with how you see this object's angular size. Come on, man.
Right.
Can we get back to the Earth and stop talking about the sky? I'd love to debate
sure.
if the Earth rotates or is curving or is in space.
Are you trying to cock block me, Nathan?
No, you guys are just discussing rhetoric. It's just a lot of rhetoric, and it's getting kind of boring. I want to get back to the Earth, and if it curves or rotates.
Holy shit! I'm sorry for boring you. We had
it's all right. No problem.
Nathan, until you come back with a working model, we're not going to have to. We don't want to listen to you unless you have a working model.
Sorry, Nathan. We're going to need a map and a model before you can get perms to talking here.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, those were none of my arguments. So
I tried to get back. I tried to get back to gravity. Right? I thought
gravity would be a great conversation. He doesn't want to have it. He's boring. So can we get back to gravity?
Chill yourself, Nathan.
Let's not get pulled into gravity.
Let's do gravity, mate. Let's do gravity, mate. Come on.
Let's go.
There we are.
Oh, so we're on gravity?
Hell yeah.
So what type of gravity is the current science, quote unquote, in the heliocentric ball model? I mean, reification fallacy, sorry.
It's chill. I'm not going to be ridiculously picky about things. So I'm assuming you just want me to stay Einsteinian and then shut up.
I don't want, it's not that what I want you to do. It's what is the current understanding of gravity according to the quote unquote scientists of the day.
All Einsteinian, the bendy-wendy space-time type stuff.
Bendy-windy space-time, right? Because it's not Newtonian, because he replaced everything from Newtonian. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So, the general theory of relativity in it's supposedly a scientific theory. However, a scientific theory, to become one, must have validated, confirmed scientific hypotheses, that thing we call experiments, before it becomes a theory. That's what makes it a theory, right?
Yep.
Can you give me the experiment that validated that? Means on or before 1915, because that's when the general theory of relativity was established, right? So I'm going to need a scientific experiment that validated that general theory of relativity to become an actual scientific theory. Can you do that?
Sure. I think I know the examples. So you're wanting the kind of experiments that made us go, oh, Newton fucked up. We should go for Einstein stuff. Yeah.
Newton never proposed a scientific theory in his life. We're on to Einstein. So I'm going to need...
Yeah, I mean...
I know you're shocked, Bambi. Just relax. I'm going to say this one more time. I'm going to need the scientific theory of the general theory of relativity. Just state it briefly. It's not going to take that much. And then I want the scientific experiment. That means I want the natural phenomena observed, I want the hypothesis, and I want the experiment with the control variables in it on or before 1915 when it was established. Is that fair?
Yeah, sure.
I figured.
So the one I would jump for will be the precession of Mercury's perihelion, but that's why I was trying to have the discussion with you about astronomy, because we already disagree on that. So there's
no. Stop. It's not a case. I'm going to say this one more time. It's not a case of agree or disagree. That's subjective. We're into objectivity. To be a scientific theory, it has to have experimental validation to make it so.
Yeah, you make a prediction with it, and then you go and validate that prediction.
Exactly.
Yep. So that's what I was saying about the precession of Mercury's perihelion.
All right. So natural phenomena observed, please.
The precession of Mercury's perihelion.
Precession. Just be patient with me. I'm going to write it down right here.
Sure.
Precession of Mercury. Is that all you had?
Perihelion.
Perihelion.
Or orbit. Both kind of interchangeable.
Okay, that's the dependent variable. Or the effect. See the problem we're going to have before I get to what's your independent variable?
Yeah, like we have already agreed, or well, not really agreed. We currently disagree, and we didn't really get to the end of my argument on astronomy stuff. So like, I don't like, that's what I was trying to avoid skipping to gravity, because we're going to get to this point where I'm talking about stuff in space and astronomy related things, and like there's not really anywhere to go from there, because we've not had the discussion that would have to build on.
There is no experiment, is what you're trying to tell me.
Wow.
Sure, we can go for that.
There is no experiment because you gave me the dependent variable precession of Mercury perihelion. That's the dependent variable. What causes the precession of Mercury perihelion?
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. So it's not an experiment.
Wow, that was good. That's brilliant. Can we talk about rotation?
He said true. There's nothing wrong with it. He agreed that there wasn't an experiment. So how is general theory of relativity an experiment? Or scientific theory, I'm sorry. It's not. In fact, it's problematic because it purports to space and time bending and warping. We won't get into special relativity. That's another reification fallacy. We won't spend our time with that, but it has the same problem. Is time physical?
It's a concept.
Yeah, it's a concept, right? So concepts, it's not physical. I just want to confirm it, not to pound the point. I just want to confirm. You said concept, that's fine with me. Space, that is length, width, and height. Is that physical or is that a concept also?
Length and time are both concepts the same way. I presume you're going to try and get on to, if it's just a concept, then how can we build space-time? Because you can't have time as an axis because it's just a concept.
Yeah, you can't bend or wart or dilate non-physical concepts.
Yeah, so would you agree that space is physical?
No. Length, width, or height. That's what I mean by space. We'll get into space here in a second. No, space is length, width, and height. Concepts.
Well, you can attribute those set of axes to if you like. Space is just, and you can just imagine an empty volume. You can measure.
Yeah, length, width, and height. Length, width, and height. I don't really care. Yeah, you can measure whatever you arbitrarily delineate as the volume, but length, width, and height is defining space.
Those are the concepts we use to define space. You could also define it with a radius and two angles.
It's a concept. They're all concepts. How can you dilate, bend, or warp non-physical concepts? You can't. It's a reification fallacy on steroids. So we have The general theory of relativity has no scientific experiment validating it to become a scientific theory in the first place, and that it's a second graders can defeat this as a reification fallacy as soon as it was published in 1915. That's really all I have for you.
Right, I was trying to have a coherent discussion from start to finish with you, but you wanted to stop me on. You wanted to stop all the talk about.
What the hell are you talking about, sir?
You got roasted. We're gonna move on to another.
Whoa! Where was I not? I'll tell you what. You ain't gonna double back on me now. I went specifically step through this with you. That anyone in this hangout can answer the questions. You're not going to then turn around and come back and say that I had an incoherent conversation with you.
Yeah, he's gaslighting. That's called gaslighting, sir.
What the hell are you talking about, sir?
I was saying that we skipped from the points we were making, stopped making those, and then moved to gravity, which we did do.
Oh,
you didn't have any points. That's why we moved to gravity.
Yeah, once it was pointed out that we're trying to deal with cause-effect relationships, and when you gave us anything in the sky, your next question is what caused that when doing science. So we had to move away from that to the understanding that that's not science. So pointing at things in the sky, and we talk about gravity, and then you point at things in the sky again, and then you bring up the perihelion of Mercury. Question is, as QE pointed out, what caused that? Because we're trying to do science, my friend. I've got a lot of respect for you, but ultimately we're trying to do science, mate.
You didn't have any science for the sky, and then you didn't have any science for gravity, and now you're here crying about how we didn't want to talk about the sky anymore.
That's fine. I'll concede those points.
That's pathetic. Do you want to not have any science for Earth rotation? Because QE said he's done with you. So I want to know, you want to get roasted? You want to get roasted again because you think the Earth rotates?